Good morning, everybody. Chris Piper with the Department of Elections. As of last night, there were 5.9 million registered voters in the Commonwealth. This year, through Saturday, 2.754 million Virginians had already cast their ballot in the Commonwealth. Nearly 1.8 million of those were cast in person. Absentee ballots, 956,000 were cast. There's about 200,000 not yet received and or surrendered. That's a total of 46% of registered voters have already cast ballots. 68.7% of our total turnout in 2016. This was obviously the first year that Virginians didn't need an excuse to cast an absentee ballot, so we anticipated higher numbers, but the enthusiasm Virginians showed for casting early ballots is unprecedented. As a result, we've had a quiet morning. While there have been minor issues, nothing that we didn't anticipate necessarily, and at no point was voting interrupted in the Commonwealth. As a result, we feel very confident going into the rest of the day that voting will continue to be successful here in the Commonwealth. I'll have another briefing at 4 p.m., at which point we'll go over the results, reporting that will occur after the polls close, and then we'll have another update at 9 p.m. So that's all I have for you this morning, and I'm happy to take any questions. Dina will lead us off.
Do you have any numbers on overall turnout in the Commonwealth so far for those who have been voting today?
No, we don't track that. Anything we would have would be anecdotal. We have seen swift movement through the polls, not long lines, and people generally being able to come in and out in the polling locations.
Okay, next we will go to Amy Friedenberger with Run Up Times.
Hi, and I'm not sure if this is something that you would be able to answer at this point or later in the day, but I was wondering if you have a sense of the share of absentee ballots that are likely to be counted today before the 11 p.m. cutoff.
So at our last look, and the question was the share of absentee ballots left to be counted. As of this morning, our statistics showed that we had about 300,000 ballots that still needed to be pre-processed. And so that is roughly about the same number that we had in 2016 on Election Day. And so we feel confident that the registrars are in a position to be able to get through a large number of those through this evening, but I'll have more information at 4 p.m.
Can you tell us about the minor issues, and also have you seen any kind of indication at all of voter intimidation in any way?
The question was to talk a little bit about the minor issues and whether there was any voter intimidation. We've had no reports, to my knowledge, of voter intimidation at the polls. It's been a very smooth process at all the polling places across the Commonwealth. The minor issues are typical things that we see, machines that were not operating at the start, but voting continues in those situations. And so we haven't had any indication that voters were turned away or that there was any inability for them to cast their ballot.
Evan Watson with 13 News.
Hi there. Yes, I wanted to ask a question about, you mentioned the early voting numbers earlier. Speaking so far today, what effect do you think it's had that we've seen higher early voting turnout on the actual election day turnout this year? Has it eased the process at all? Could you speak to any effects that you've seen so far?
Yeah, great question. And the question was the early voting numbers and the effect on today's election turnout. I think to put it all into perspective for you, in 2016, we had about 560,000 votes cast prior to Election Day. That means that in 2016, the Commonwealth moved 3.5 million voters through the polls on Election Day. There aren't 3.5 million registered voters left to vote, given the large number that we saw prior to Election Day. So I think what we're seeing is as a result, those who are wishing to vote today can move through quickly to cast their ballots as a result.
We have received several calls in the newsroom from people who are going to the polls, and then they're saying they've already voted via absentee ballot, and they swear they haven't voted before. Have you heard that? We're hearing like at least 5 who've called into our newsroom.
Okay, the question being that voters, at least 5 voters coming to the polling place and being told that they'd already cast their ballot. I haven't personally heard of that at this point. What I would say to any voter who appears at the polling place and are told that they do have the option of casting a provisional ballot if they're certain that they have not cast their absentee ballot prior, or cast a ballot prior to that.
We'll go to Robert Zula with the Virginia Mercury. Robert.
Hi, thank you. I think on the call you might have started before we heard. I was just wondering if you could repeat the total number of voters who had cast ballots through, through Saturday in the early voting period.
Sure. So the total number of ballots cast, 2,754,134. Of those, almost 1.8 million were cast in person, and 956,000 cast absentee by mail.
Thank you very much.
Tracking Fusco with 8 minutes. All right, next we will try Antonio Olido, the Washington Post. All right, we'll try Michelle Hankerson, WHRO.
Yeah, hi. I jumped on the call a few minutes late, so sorry if this is makes you repeat yourself. But is there any sense, will most of Virginia be done counting their ballots tonight? Is it too early to tell? Where are we with that?
Thanks, Michelle. The question was, will most of the ballots be counted tonight? I'm going to go over the process for results at 4 p.m. and talk about that and have a little better sense. I think it's a hard thing to predict, but I'll have more information about that at 4 p.m. tonight.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I guess what would be your main message to Virginians right now who are kind of sitting on the edge of their seat, waiting for all this to happen? I mean, what's your main message to everybody on this day today?
The question being, what's our main message to the voters in Virginia for today? I would say, first of all, if you haven't voted, please get out there before 7 p.m. and cast your ballot. I think, secondly, just like everything else in 2020, it's a unique year. I think we should be prepared for a unique night and a unique week with regard to elections. The governor was up here just last week talking about election week rather than election night, and I think that's a pretty powerful message for everybody to be aware of. And I think that it's been really an election season. Virginia's been voting since September 18th. We've seen just an incredible number of votes cast here in Virginia already. I think it's going to make for a smoother day today. And in Virginia, we are in a position where we've been pre-processing absentee ballots by mail, but that's not the case around the country. So I think everybody should be prepared for a little bit longer night and probably a longer week as we go through the ballots here and make sure that every single ballot is counted. And I think that if there's one main message that we want to put out there, we in elections have always spent time to make sure every single ballot's counted, and we're going to do that just like we've done with every single election, because every ballot matters. Every ballot should count, and we're going to do that. So I keep referring to my high school algebra teacher who said it's more important that you get it accurate and right than you get it fast, and that's what we're going to do in Virginia.
John Blackwell, Richmond Times-Dispatch. Okay, Mike Valerio, WUSA.
Hey, Commissioner, thanks for the call. Can I ask two questions? Is that all right, or is that breaking the rules?
That's fine.
Okay. First question, we have reports from our CBS affiliates and the Times this morning that Republicans across Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan are trying to get more access to localities, election offices, so they can more effectively challenge absentee ballots as they're processed. I was curious if Virginia is experiencing sort of a similar dynamic, if more guidance from the department has had to be given out to Virginia's 133 localities about people from either party trying to get more access to our local precincts as more of these mail-in ballots could be challenged as the night goes on.
So thanks, Mike. The question was dealing with specifically authorized representatives here in Virginia, and we haven't had any reports from registrars of concerns of that nature. We have a very specific process for individuals to be authorized representatives in the polling place, and that information has been available to the registrars, and as far as I understand, there hasn't been any issues here in Virginia.
Okay, great. And then second question, it kind of deals with Michelle's question from 8 News. The results tonight, I apologize if you've gone over this in past calls, but 11 o'clock or thereabouts is when we're going to get the results from our localities of mail-in advanced votes. And then could you just clarify, Commissioner, will there be any shifting in those mail-in numbers, or is like that it? It's going to be reported at 11 p.m., and then those numbers won't change as counting continues for those early ballots?
So the question was about results reporting, and I just want to reiterate, we'll go over that process and have more of a discussion about that at 4 p.m. today. Yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Beating a dead horse, and I apologize if I am, but 11 o'clock was the sort of when you told localities, all right, stop your counting and then tabulate and report, right? So if you have only 300,000 more absentee ballots to pre-process, is that better than you thought you'd be? Are you further along than you thought you'd be? And is there a chance we could see some localities stopping their machines before 11 and reporting their absentee ballots before 11?
All right, so the question again is on results, and I think I'll address the question you had about is it better than we thought we'd be. Again, I'll repeat, 2020 has been a unique year, so I didn't think much about where we'd be, for the most part, because everything has been so unexpected. What I will say is that looking at the numbers, there's about 300,000 ballots out there to pre-process, which is about where we were in 2016 on Election Day. And so the best I can say is that we're in a very good position here in the Commonwealth, and we can talk more about that, I think, at 4 p.m., where we'll be at the end of the night.
Do you think it'll be earlier than 11?
So I got out of the prediction game a long time ago. But what I will say is that Virginia is in a very good position because of the laws that allow the registrars to pre-process. And the registrars, and I will just say this, I'll take the opportunity, the registrars, the election officials across the Commonwealth have done incredible work this year. They have turned 80-hour weeks into 100-hour weeks, and they've processed through these 2.7 million votes already cast. They continue to work hard and will continue to work hard even after today